Hey everybody, Blu-ray here, and I got a special guest here.
Sedition Scorns, you already know who I am, the
Uh,
usual.
And this time, as you can tell by the title of the video, we'll be discussing about Resident Evil 2 Remake and just talk about overall the game and how we feel about the game. So you take it from there, Sedition.
First off, Resident Evil 2 Remake, 10 out of 10, amazing fucking game. Thank you, Capcom, after years of anticipation. Finally got my money's worth.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of Capcom's best game for this year, and I put in so many hours into the game. I don't even know how many hours I put into the game to the point where I got all the trophies and whatnot, except for the extra trophies that they added into the game because of the free DLC, which is awesome that it's free. But yeah, 100% in that game. Amazing game. I loved it. And uh, I feel like with the game, I mean, despite it receiving, positive reviews, I feel like most hardcore fans of the franchise are especially with the game itself because I know a lot of people whenever I see discussions about the best Resident Evil game, it's always Resident Evil 2, like the original on the PlayStation. And those diehard fans pretty much hate this game, pretty much. Say it's not a good remake, essentially, because it's not, it doesn't have the tank control style kind of gameplay. It's like over the shoulder, kind of like similar to I want to say similar to Resident Evil 6 camera angle, where you have free movement of the camera. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Like, does it bother you that it doesn't play like the original PlayStation tank control style, or are you fine with this new control scheme?
I don't mind the control scheme of Resident Evil 2 Remake. It does feel a lot more complex and technical. Because in the original Resident Evils, preferably 2 and 3, that was all tank control where the camera wasn't really fixated if you saw an enemy or if you go to a door, you'll see like some frame rates here and there. But I think the camera motions on Resident Evil 2 Remake is actually pretty tolerable. I did encounter some issues while I was playing the secondary half of Claire B campaign where I noticed that if I turn the camera, it's slightly off to the point where I'm not seeing the actual enemy, but I'm only seeing Claire itself. But that was like one of the major complaints I had about the game. But the camera issues, I don't think it's bad. I know I can understand a lot of people didn't like it because they were initially wanted the original camera angles back. I think the camera is fine as it is because if you are a Resident Evil veteran like you and I, you can kind of get a sense of where the game's going to. But I can see why a lot of people were displeased with it.
I mean, I feel like in general, because you got a newer console-wise, or it's not really new anymore technically, but they're using the Resident Evil engine itself. You got to put in every little detail of the game. I mean, you can't really do that with the fixed with fixed camera and whatnot. And
Yeah,
yeah, but for me, because I'm more used to being able to move the camera freely, I'm more used to that in terms of playing when it comes to playing a Resident Evil game. Um, but yeah, a lot of people were hoping that it'd be like the GameCube's Resident Evil remake, how it plays like that. Like it still stays true to the tank controls and whatnot, but just better graphics and whatnot. And I could see that, but it's like that. I mean, to bitch about that and be like, that's like my number one reason why I don't like the remake is kind of stupid itself. Because the gameplay's fine in my personal opinion. There's pretty much some good jump scares here and there. Like there's moments where it threw me off, and how you have a fucking flashlight and you can't really see much as to what's going on, like what's around you, and sometimes you get attacked by a zombie or fucking Mr. X, which is he's fucking terrifying in this game. Like I could not take a break with that guy. Like hearing his footsteps just scares the shit out of me. But I feel like with this remake, it does a good job with that in terms of like building up fear, and it's plays very similar to the original. It's not like you could go guns blazing in the game. You have to be very careful with your ammo and whatnot. Otherwise, that's it. You're fucked. And yeah, and story's more or less the same as the original, with just some certain changes here and there. And we got some new enemies in the game, like they're called Ivies, the plant zombies that you encounter like towards the halfway into the game. Uh, what else? I'm trying to think of like any other new enemies that they added into.
There's also the G mutants in the sewers. They're new.
Oh yeah, those things. Yeah, they're new. And yeah, and then like the new stuff that they add into the game, you could board up windows and whatnot, so that way zombies won't like break in and attack you and whatnot. And then you got your knife, which you gotta be very careful with that as well, because it could break. And you could,
They also implemented grenades,
yeah,
flash and regular hand grenades, which is extremely useful, especially on hard difficulties. But you have to be very careful because if you miss one shot, you are completely screwed.
yeah. And the zombies in general, like you think they're dead, but they'll get back up the second time and attack you. Which, I mean, if you have unlimited ammo, it's whatever. You could just waste your bullets on that. But like, you can't like trust those zombies because they don't stay dead. They get back up.
Yeah, the best way I can tell people if you're new to the game, always aim for the head and the leg. That's their weak spot.
Yeah, like if you could pull off a headshot, they're automatically dead. But like if you see them like go down on the floor and you think they're dead, they'll get back up eventually. So you gotta like you gotta be careful with that basically. But once you kill them again, the second time they stay dead. But it's very risky to do that because you're essentially wasting ammo on a zombie when you could be using that ammo for like a boss fight or whatever.
Hmm. Also, furthermore mention, I cannot stand the lickers. They are harder than they are as they seem as it is.
I felt like the dogs were annoying to me. Like I don't know, like they run pretty fast, and it's like, I mean, you could run past them, but they still kind of get annoying because they jump on you and bite your neck and whatnot. But yeah, what else? Graphics wise for the game, beautiful, love it.
Best Resident Evil looking game I've ever seen. And it's, of course, like you mentioned, it's run by the Resident Evil engine, which was also used in Resident Evil 7. So they implemented the visuals from 7 and they pushed it over to Resident Evil 2 Remake. And my God, when I played Leon's campaign and I saw RPD, I literally shed a fucking tear like a man because the vision, like the RPD, the structures, the first floor, the second floor, the office room, it felt so similar to the original game. And I don't know what Capcom did, but they've done a magnificent job with the visualization detail. I have to give Capcom props for that. I mean, I was starstruck when I saw the RPD for the first time in the remake. I was like, I feel like I'm 10 years old all over again playing the game.
Like since you played more Resident Evil 2 on the original PlayStation, is there any differences that you notice from playing the remake to the original and whatnot? Besides obvious gameplay style wise, but like,
That's a good question. I've noticed one thing that in the remake, when you open a door, you go through the door and there's no loading screen. So in the original game, when you open the door, you'll see the visualization of the door, you'll hear the sound effect, you'll see it open and close. But in the remake, you go through the door and you're already in the room.
hmm.
While in the original, it loads up. But in the remake, when you go through the door, you're already in the next room within a matter of seconds.
Now would you say like in terms of like environment wise places? Would you say that they were more or less the same from the original, or was there like some new rooms that weren't in the original?
Um, Chief Iron's room is exactly the same as I remembered growing up in the original. The rookie RPD office room is slightly different because in the original game it was on the second floor step, and the one room I forgot. Remember, I think it was the first hall, the first floor on the main hall after you get the unicorn statue. All the locations are completely different. So in the original game, you had to get the medallion in the RPD room, but in the remake, you have to get it in the main hall where the statue is located. So there are some items that diehard fans are probably not going to expect compared to the original game. So some items are either in the same as the original, or you have to think strategically of where you can get the items because you have to be very well aware of how to play the game.
Yeah. So pretty much it's more of if you completely memorize Resident Evil 2 on the original PlayStation, don't expect it to be the same as the remake.
Exactly.
How did you feel about the giant alligator in the remake? Because I know a lot of people were disappointed with that.
Um, Honestly, I didn't have any complaints or issues with the detailed alligator model in the remake. I mean, yeah, in the original it was 2D pixelated, but in the remake it almost felt too realistic to the point that people are just like, this is not the alligator I remembered. This is something completely different than I expected. Like playing, I don't know, like Resident Evil 5, for instance, like on chapter 3, 4 in the wastelands, you see crocodiles.
Hmm.
But in the remake of this game, it's just one fucking alligator. And this alligator is, I don't know.
So a lot of people were essentially complaining that you're not fully fighting the thing. You're just running from it, and then you like shoot the giant explosion and then kill it, and that's it.
Yeah, in the original, you were in the sewers. You had to open the switch, run back, opens its mouth, shoot the canister, and it blows up, and then you go into the next room. In the remake, you're under you're in the lower section of the sewer. You kill the enemy, climb up the ladder, and then you go back to the parking lot.
Hmm.
I don't know if you noticed that.
No. Because like the thing is, like Capcom was actually considering on removing the giant alligator because they felt like it didn't fit with its theme of the game, but they managed to work things out. So I feel like for those who still complaining or are still complaining the fact that it wasn't a full-on boss fight, that you're just actually running from it, and then you like you just pull the trigger and that's it. At least be grateful for the fact that Capcom at least added the giant alligator in the game because they were actually considering on removing it completely.
But I'm glad Capcom insisted to add the alligator just for nostalgic purposes.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like Resident Evil 2 remakes puzzles are very straightforward, and some of them are casually easy if you play the original game. Like one puzzle that I had difficulties with was the Rook puzzle on Leon's A campaign in the sewers because three of them already in place. You just had to go find, I believe, the king, the queen, and the rook. And that took me over half an hour to figure out that puzzle. And I was just like, okay, I was about to give up. But thankfully, I found a walkthrough and I realized my dumbass should not take out the rook plug on the second floor of the sewer and say you're supposed to leave it there, get the king and the queen rook, go back to the room, take the rook plug, and bam, you fight William X.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
I guess you could say that. I mean, if you played the original, it's not much of a spoiler, I guess. But anyways, what did you think about the boss fights when it comes to William?
I was a little disappointed. I mean, I expected a little bit more from William fight. He was extremely easy. I mean,
I mean, I'm talking about like each of his forms that you fight him.
Oh, I like fighting the second form the best, where you're on top, you're like on the platform surface, and then you press the button switch, and then the crate comes in, and then it just smacks him right in the head, and then he goes, "Wah!"
I think the one I had a hard time with is probably like not as like final form, but like if you played campaign, I think it was Leon campaign A mainly, or was it B? I don't know. I'll stick with Leon campaign A because that's essentially the final boss for that, where he's like kind of big and it's like in a facility, lab facility, whatever. That one I had a hard time with.
Yeah, I did too as well.
Like I just couldn't. I felt like it was a little strong. Like I feel like as soon as he hits me, like already in danger. I had to heal up quickly. Another hit, then I'm dead. That was a pain in the ass for me on normal difficulty.
I also think fighting Super X in Leon's campaign A was a little challenging at times because there's a trophy where you're supposed to beat him in under 4 minutes. But
Yeah,
if you don't pay attention to him, you are not going to be in a lifetime surprise because in the original game, Ada throws you a rocket launcher, and then in this game, you have to kill him with your own manually weapons. You can't just kill him in one shot. You have to play strategically. You have to learn his move set, and you have to conserve ammo because if you don't, you are going to die repeatedly.
yeah. As soon as I got done fighting Williams, when I was done fighting William, and then I had to fight Mr. X and his form. I was like already getting frustrated with that. Like I had like not my ammo practically was almost gone. All I had was almost like my flamethrower. But luckily, I managed to pull through and got the trophy like within my first try on that shit. But goddamn, he was a
I
pain in the
mainly
ass.
I mainly use the lightning hawk to kill him.
Sadly, I wasted that on the previous boss fight because I wasn't expecting another boss fight. Alright, so we talked about a little bit about gameplay and the story. You got anything to add?
There is there's actually not a lot of replay value because once you beat the game in the remake, you can play Claire's Beef campaign, but essentially, if you play the opposite campaigns, but I found Claire B campaign to be kind of like the highlight of the game because I'm a big Claire Redfield fan. She's Bay #1 Resident Evil universe. To all the Claire Redfield lovers, I salute you. But Claire B's campaign is a lot more like it's less strategic in a way, but except for the Sherry puzzle, I hated the Sherry puzzle where you had to solve it in under 60 seconds. That took me I don't know how many tries. I was so frustrated. I just want to break my controller and never play it again. That's how frustrated I was with that puzzle.
Uh, that was a frustrating trophy as well. But
It
like,
was.
I felt like with each campaign for Leon and Claire's, they're more or less the same in my personal opinion. It's just different dialogues and Leon encounters Ada, Claire encounters Sherry, and then so on. Like everything you do, if you play Leon's campaign A and Claire campaign A, is more or less the same. It's just there's one room that Leon can go into, and that is Chief Iron's room. You can only go to that area with Claire. And when you play Leon B or Claire B, it's also the same, but it's just like they put in like the items are located differently, and you encounter Mr. X like right away almost in a way. Like as soon as you go into a hallway, he's like right there.
I'm sorry. I have to say this. Fuck Mr. X in the ass. That motherfucker will chase you in every hall room. And it actually just learned this too that if you walk slowly with Claire and Leon, you have a less chance of fighting Mr. X. But if you're walking at normal speed and if you have a good pair of headphones, you can actually hear his footsteps depending on the other room that he's in, and he can actually track you down. So, say like if I'm in the library and he's in the second floor, he can hear you within half the distance of the room, and I'm just like, fuck, he's got good hearing.
Just imagine that. Imagine, I mean, he's already scary enough as it is in this remake. Now imagine Nemesis in the Resident Evil 3 remake.
Oh, which I believe that's going to happen because Capcom stated that if there was enough fan satisfaction and there was enough copies sold worldwide, which fun fact, Resident Evil 2 remake sold more copies than Resident Evil 7 did in its first 2 weeks,
Huh,
which is amazing.
that's crazy. So
Yeah, and,
I assume that like the next Resident Evil game will just play like Resident Evil 2 remake. I assume.
or they might give us Resident Evil 8.
No, I'm saying that Resident Evil 8 will just play like that essentially. Because
Oh,
I know quite a few people didn't like the fact that Resident Evil 7 was played in first person.
I liked it.
I didn't really mind it that much. I mean, it still kept the scary atmosphere and whatnot.
They just didn't like it because it felt too much like Outlast and Condemned.
Pretty, I could see why some people would think that it doesn't feel like a Resident Evil game, but like if you really think about it, it is essentially a Resident Evil game. Like how the the where you manage your weapons and your items and whatnot. That's very similar to the original Resident Evil, and they even added that into Resident Evil 2, like the little hub, or not hub system, but like the menu weapon, whatever item weapon shit, whatever. I don't know what you call it, but you just press triangle and your inventory pops up.
Yeah, you're it's yeah. It's called Cache.
Yeah, that and then you got the box in Resident Evil 7, which is from the original, where you could like put away your weapons or your items or whatever. And yeah, so I'm very curious as to what Capcom's gonna do with Resident Evil 8, because more than sure that there is gonna be a Resident Evil 8. I'm more curious as to like how it's gonna play. Like, are they still gonna stick to first person view, or are they gonna go to the Resident Evil 2 remake style, like where it's over the shoulder?
Are they gonna go back to the original survival horror aspects like Seven did? Who's going to be returning? And actually, here's a question for you: since Capcom is considered your Resident Evil 8, who do you think should return in a Resident Evil game? For me personally, I would love to see Rebecca Chambers come back. We haven't even seen her since Zero.
Yeah, the only thing you last year in was probably in that Resident Evil movie. I think it's called Vendetta or something like that.
I still need to watch it.
Yeah, same here. But yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to see, I mean, not Claire, Rebecca back in Resident Evil 8, but I mean, who knows? Maybe you just play as another new character or something, and then you encounter Leon or something towards the end of the game or something like that.
A lot of people were speculating to see Billy Cohen come back from Zero, but rumors are saying that he's actually dead, but I don't think that's true.
I mean, that's what it says in the Resident Evil 5 files, or that he's
Yeah.
like dead or something like that. But I mean, who knows?
And they were thinking about bringing back Albert Wesker because spoiler alert, if you play Resident Evil 5, he's technically not dead. He's basically a clone.
I mean, who knows? Because I feel like in Resident Evil games, like it's a tradition. Once you shoot a enemy with the rocket launcher, they're dead.
Resident Evil 4 did it, 3 did it, the original did it, 0 did it.
Pretty
Actually,
much.
no. Actually, no. 0 was a handgun bullet.
Hmm. Because it's basically one. Wait, so one and two, and then three. I don't know how that ends. Isn't that where Jill like shoots Nemesis with a gun and then that's it or what?
Yeah, she killed him with the Colt 45 Magnum.
And then Resident Evil 4 is a rocket launcher.
5
5,
was a rocket launcher.
6 if you play Leon's campaign, rocket launcher.
7 was the Albert gun.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Code Veronica was the Leaner launcher.
Hmm. And
If you haven't
then
if you haven't played Code Veronica, you should. Even though it's a spin off to 3.
and then Revelations, no rocket launcher. Revelations 2, I think is a rocket launcher. I don't remember.
Yeah, it was.
It's been a while since I played the game.
Raid mode's fun. That's literally the best part of the game.
Yeah, that's another thing. Uh, did they ever add in mercenaries into the original Resident Evil 2, or was that in Resident Evil 3?
They That was 3. In the
Hmm.
N64 version, they added a battle system, which is kind of like a Dino Crisis, where you can choose certain characters and you had to fight certain enemies. But in Resident Evil 3, that was the first game in the series where it featured mercenaries, where you can play as Jill, Carlos, Nikolai, and oh, that other dude that killed. Oh my god, I can't think of him. I can't think of him. It's been so long since I played 3. But yeah, I'm hoping with Resident Evil 2 remake they'll add more content. They did add more free costumes where you can have Leon and Claire's original outfits from the DualShock version, which I'm happy Capcom did that. So then I can play the campaign again with Leon's RPD outfit and then Claire's original jacket with her ponytail. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm going back to my 1999 roots again. And they've also added Ghost Survivors, which I haven't even fully played, but I heard it's fucking hard.
Yeah, I was having a hard time with it. Like I was just like, yeah, I'm not feeling it, and I just ended up playing something else. Like I was like, I already got the platinum, I'm good.
I'm probably like little over halfway with Evil 2 trophy wise, but I might platinum it. I mean, I don't know. The only the only Resident Evil game I platinum was 6, and I almost have a platinum for 5. So technically, 2 Resident Evils I almost have a platinum. But I don't know. Here's another thing for you though. So now that we talked about the gameplay, the story, and whatnot, what were some of the things that you loved and you hated about the remake?
Hmm. Things I loved about the remake. Huh. I mean, environment wise, I enjoyed like uh I feel like the puzzles, in my personal opinion, were kind of the best part in the game because like once you manage to figure out or manage to solve the puzzle, it just feels very satisfying and whatnot. Um, I like the fact that you could upgrade your storage because I know the original you can't really do that at all, but in this one you could upgrade your storage and you could even find parts for your gun and combine it to make it a little stronger. I thought that was pretty nice. And yeah, that's essentially it. Things I didn't really like about it was probably, I would say, the lack of music in the game. But I would understand why they didn't really add it because it just didn't really fit the theme of it. But for those who want to hear the classic Resident Evil 2 soundtrack and whatnot, there you could purchase it as I think it's like a DLC. Yes, as a DLC. So if you want that good old Resident Evil 2 nostalgic music and the sound effects when you're managing your inventory and the little beepy noise that or I don't know how you say it or how you can make that sound, but yeah, you would have to pay for that if you really want that nostalgic feeling. But yeah, I say the lack of music into it is one of the things I didn't like, and the fact that Leon and Claire's campaign are just very much more. They're pretty much the same. It's just like towards the end of the game, it's a little different. Or Leon goes into the sewers and fights a giant alligator. Claire doesn't do that. That's like the only difference. And then of course, Claire has to find or go rescue Sherry and whatnot. There's a segment where you switch characters. If you're playing Leon's campaign, you're Ada. If you're playing Claire's campaign, you're Sherry. But that's essentially it. The enemies you fight are very much the same. The bosses you fight are the same, except for like the final boss for Leon's campaign and Claire's campaign. But yeah, that's pretty much it. What about you?
Things I liked about the game, I love the environments. I love the enemy designs. I love the sound effects when you fire a gun because it does feel realistic and not too forceful. I'll be going to a zombie and I'll shoot him, and you can actually hear the bullet penetration. And I like how when you go through the room, you can hear like teardrops falling. You can hear windows breaking when you bore the windows. I like the combination. I like the thoughts of like you mentioned before, adding custom parts for your weapon to make it more powerful because they are essentially very helpful in the game, especially towards the end of the game. Um, I like the fact that the puzzles can be a little challenging because in the original there wasn't a very few handful of puzzles, but in the remake they've done a pretty good job making it more fair and straightforward to the player. Things I didn't like about the game, I definitely agree with you on this, is the music. I really wish they would have added more of the same sound effects where when you walk into a room, it's very atmospheric, very eerie, frightening, and builds such suspense like if a zombie grabs you or if a Cerberus dog attacks you or Mr. X just comes just bulldozing through the fucking door and you're about to shit your pants scared and you're about to shoot him bang, 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 which, spoiler alert, if you try to kill Mr. X, you can't kill him. Basically, if you try to shoot him multiple times, he'll fall down for about, I believe, 30 seconds or so. But once he's down, and then you just go through the room. Um, I also love the voice acting to the game. Top notch, very well written. The dialogue is essentially the same as the original, but there's also some minor twist with the voice acting, so things have been added a little differently in the remake compared to the original game. But the things I didn't like was the music. I can understand why people say the game was relatively too short, and you can beat the game within an hour or two if you speedrun it, which I kind of seems unfair. But I liked playing the game as it was because I enjoyed looking at Raccoon City. I love the amount of detail and I love the exploration. I love the suspense and the frightening terror that I loved about the original. Um, and also, I don't like how in the remake where you're only very limited to what you can have. Like for instance, you start off with a handgun in Leon A's campaign, but when you find items like first F8 sprays, herbs, and whatever, there's very limited healing items. So you have to be extremely careful of what you have to provide. But you can, of course, you can add like gunpowder, you can add more health, you can add more bullets, um, you can add more stuff for your weapons. You can unlock costumes and whatever. But um, I just wish they would have added a little bit more music sequences, like you mentioned. Like you can hear a little bit in like the RPD, the sewers, and the laboratory at the very end, which I loved that whole section. It felt very true to the original, and I think what Capcom did has done. So yeah, I didn't like the music. The music selection was bad. The game can become quite repetitive at times, especially if you're a newcomer to the Resident Evil franchise. So if you're new to the game, it's going to take you quite a while to learn the controls. learn the layout, know the puzzles, learning the boss mechanics and the puzzles itself. But that's pretty much all I can think of for likes and dislikes, really.
Hmm. Yeah, you mentioned voice acting, which I agree is pretty good. Hell, they even had the classic line in the beginning where Leon and Claire first meet, and then Leon tells her to get down, and then shoots the zombie behind her.
I was so excited when I heard that. I was like, yes, they brought back the original reference of the game.
But yeah, that you got anything else to add about the game?
Um,
Because we basically essentially covered like the gameplay, the graphics, the story, and yeah.
Gameplay wise, yeah. I mean, overall, I mean, as a Resident Evil fan since Resident Evil 2 remake, I just love Resident Evil 2 remake. I love the game for what it was. I'm so glad Capcom finally listened to the fans. They went back to the original roots. And if Resident Evil 3 remake ever comes around, I hope they'll implement the Resident Evil 2 remake style and keep the same engine for Resident Evil engine for Resident Evil 2 remake and for 7 because I think the game will look a lot more smooth. It'll be more clean. It'll be more crystal sharp. And if you're a diehard Resident Evil fan like me and Blu-ray are, and if you never played a Resident Evil game before, I highly recommend playing the remake, even if you're not associated with the Resident Evil franchise. Resident Evil 2 remake is a very good introduction to get to the series, and I mean, it's one of the highest ranked games I've ever gave it. I gave it a 10 out of 10. Like I said before, there are some pros and cons, but Resident Evil 2 remake is essentially what the series needed after, Resident Evil 5 and 6 went to survival action territory, which are both good games, do not get me wrong. And then 7 came out, returned to forms for survival horror, and then the Resident Evil 2 remake was basically Capcom's love letter to the fans of, thanking them for all the 20 plus years to their support. So overall, Resident Evil 2 remake, 10 out of 10, masterpiece of a remake, one of the best I've ever played in a very long time. And this is coming from a fan since the original.
Yeah, best game basically ever made. Capcom's been on fire at least pretty much this year.
The last couple of years, they've been doing they pretty much made themselves what they are.
Because I think like last year their top selling game was Monster Hunter. It's called Monster Hunter World or something like that.
Yeah,
That was like the top selling game in early January of last year. And then I think Mega Man 11, from what I heard, it was like I hear mixed opinions. Some are saying it's really good, and some are just saying it's okay. But nonetheless, it's at least it's a decent game from most people. And then for this year, obviously you got Resident Evil 2 Remake and Devil May Cry 5.
which by the way, Devil May Cry 5, fucking incredible game.
And they still for Devil May Cry 5, they actually do use the Resident Evil engine or RE engine, and they look great. But that is a discussion for another video, maybe.
Let's just say there's one scene Devil May Cry 5 that will satisfy fans. We're not going to tell you what it is, but you have to play the game for yourself to see it.
Yeah. This is off topic and whatnot, but like if you are interested in terms of like playing Devil May Cry 5, but you never played a single Devil May Cry game, Devil May Cry 5 has this thing in the menu is called the history of DMC, which basically tells you a rundown of the story of of the uh of the first four games. Or technically they ignore the second one. It's more of 3, 1, and 4. that they mainly talk about. But yeah, I mean, you know, I say pick up the game, try it out for yourselves. If you had no idea about the story, you could do that, or just watch a YouTube video. There's tons of YouTube videos discussing about the series and the timeline, the story for Devil May Cry 5, and even Resident Evil. In case you guys are confused or you tried out Resident Evil Zero 1 and you just don't like the tank control, you could always watch a YouTube video to get a rundown in terms of like the story, and then you could just hop onto Resident Evil 2 Remake and you'll be set.
It's also recommended to watch the Albert Wesker file report because it does give you a rundown of how Resident Evil originally started with the T virus and then the Umbrella Corporation and how the zombies got infected, how Raccoon City became infected by all the bioterrorism weapons, and pretty much it essentially is like a 25-minute video of how Resident Evil was born and how Wesker was the main villain. And I don't know, I'm not going to spoil it, but I highly recommend watching Albert Wesker's file report because it's a very well essential descriptive video about how Resident Evil is basically summarized.
And I just remember one thing that I liked about the game. I like the fact that like when you shoot off like a certain part of the zombie's body, you can see like a bullet hole, or sometimes their limbs are hanging and then it falls off. I like that part. I like that much in terms of the detail. What or that attention to detail in that game is pretty good. I like it. But yeah, that's all I could think of in terms of like of the game.
Shout out to Resident Evil 2 Biohazard remake on my phone with Leon and Bay. Just saying.
Yeah, that's all I could think of. You got anything else to add to end the video or?
Play the remake, play DMC5. Both great games. Definitely my top five of the year list. We're not even halfway even over yet with games, and I'm already picking my game of the year so far.
I mean, for my list, it's easily I have two games on my list for my top five video. Spoiler alert, but
I
the-
same as me, probably.
but for the other three games for this year, I'm not too sure honestly, but we'll find out. Cause I feel like so far, in terms of my personal opinion, there's no new games that are coming out this year that I'm like super like hyped or interested in playing besides like maybe like Pokemon and Luigi's Mansion for the Switch. But like
Ooh,
yeah, I don't know. Hopefully this year will prove me wrong and there'll be some good games coming out this year. Who knows? But
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I'm waiting for Cyberpunk 2077 and Dying Light 2 to come out.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Dying Light too.
Hopefully we'll see gameplay at E3. Maybe because Sony won't be there.
We're mainly gonna be seeing gameplay on Xbox conference or some shit like that. I don't know.
More likely,
Because it's gonna be Nintendo and Microsoft and that.
Microsoft. Yeah, I'll still watch it. I mean, Sony hasn't had a good E3 since 2016.
I don't remember 2016. I just remember last year's.
Oh God, that was kind of fun.
Yeah, but I felt like it wasn't that exciting. They showed off two new. They showed off the that one game from Sucker Punch that they're making. I think they showed off a little bit of their newest game that's coming out this year that I completely forgot about, Days Gone,
Yep.
and Last of Us Part 2. That's about it.
I want more gameplay footage of Last of Us 2. I want them feels Naughty Dog.
I feel like at this point it's gonna come out for the PS5 because it's been a long time.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's either going to be out by the end of this year or sometime mid next year.
Yeah, who knows?
But anywho, play DMC5, play Resident Evil 2 Remake, both great games. Highly recommended.
And that will conclude today's video. So hopefully you guys enjoy the video. Be sure to subscribe to Sedition. I will leave a link to his channel in the description box down below for you guys to check out, watch, and whatnot. I'll even leave his Instagram and whatnot, so you could go follow him there.
I need
And
to upload more videos on the YouTube. It's been 3 weeks.
yeah, you got anything to say to end the video? I mean,
Capcom, Capcom, I love you. Thank you for making Resident Evil 2 remake. Now please make Resident Evil 3 remake so I can die happy to see Nemesis so I can bitch about it.
all right. Till then, we will see you guys next time.